Now what will it be? Death or exile?
All right, we're gonna start with
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to.
Should we not follow the advice of the galactically stupid?
You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Worst part of it is they're gonna blame us for the whole thing. And they can't have people knowing the truth. We're the the cover-up. Don't forget, we're the Exiles.
Very well. Death by exile.
Welcome to another installment of the Film Exiles podcast. I am your host Manu, and tonight we are reviewing Tomb Raider. Thankfully, I am not alone. I have with me Millennial Mike.
Hello, it is Sheen Mikezilla.
We're gonna have to work on your intro, man. You've been watching a little bit too much Voltron, my man.
Defenders of the universe.
All right, carrying on.
Go ahead.
And I also have James with me tonight. How you doing, brother?
Not bad, man. Not bad. I've been watching a little bit of Jack Ryan. You finished it, right?
Yeah, I finished it. Knocked it out in one day because I have no life.
One day. Damn.
We are here to talk about Tomb Raider, the 2008 flick released by Warner Brothers Pictures.
Sorry, the 2008 release?
2018. I said 2018,
Okay.
right?
Detroit becoming human.
Yo, listen. Anyways, we're here to talk about Tomb Raider 2018, released by Warner Brothers Pictures, starring Alicia Vikander and directed by Ruar Uthog. A brief synopsis of the film: Lara Croft, the fiercely independent daughter of a missing adventurer, must push herself beyond her limits when she discovers the island where her father disappeared. So the film was released last March. So the director is a Norwegian film director. His name is Roar Uthog. He is best known for Fritvilt, Flucht, and The Wave, that was released in 2015 before WB hired him to reboot the Tomb Raider franchise. Mike, why don't you get us started and tell us your overall thoughts about the Tomb Raider reboot?
So I watched it in theater.
Spoiler free. Sorry, spoiler free. So anybody's free to listen.
Okay, yeah. No spoilers here. Watched it in theater. I believe I watched it in theater the opening night, I believe, or the opening week. But loved the movie. It was an awesome experience in the theater. After watching it last night, however, still love the movie. I have some criticisms of it, but I say what it does really well is that it makes a really compelling action movie, but it's still really well filmed. It's well acted, and it just does a really good job at doing the action well. The music is fantastic by Junkie XL. Was his name Tom
Hulkenborg?
Yeah, Hulkenberg. Yeah, he always does a fantastic job. I loved his score. Totally elevated this film. I think that without that score, I think that I probably wouldn't have rated this film as highly as I did. So, Alicia Vikander, I loved her in. I actually watched a recent film that she did with James McAvoy, Submergence. It was like I guess you'd call it like a drama, romance kind of film. Really great film. Lesser known, but I actually really enjoyed it. Of course, I love her work as well in Ex Machina too. She's fantastic, and I thought she really brought it. I was a little bit skeptical with her in this role initially, and I know a lot of other people were skeptical too. They wanted to see maybe someone of a different build, or maybe someone of a different, acting caliber to her. But I really held out, and I think she did a really great job. I hope to see her in a sequel. So overall, my opinions are pretty high of the movie, but I do have a few nuanced things to say later on. So definitely can't wait to get more into it.
James, how about you? What did you think?
Oh, I've only seen it once, but I saw it the opening weekend in theaters. I do have the 4K Blu-ray release. I just haven't gotten around to watching it again. My initial thoughts when I saw the movie was it is it's almost like a backhanded compliment. It is a serviceable movie. It's enjoyable, but it is a very well made, enjoyable movie, if that makes sense. Like everything is top notch in it in terms of production values, and other than maybe a by the numbers script, everybody comes in with the performances. The music by Junkie XL is fantastic. The direction is excellent and stuff like that. I just feel that the movie probably could have done with a bit of maybe a more like a stronger script, but I really enjoyed it, and I think that this movie is one of the few movies lately that has shown how to do diversity in a film well.
Yeah, I
We have
agree with that.
we have a female-led action movie where they're not sort of ramming a certain feminist agenda down your throat. You have Daniel Wu, who's the second lead. He's an Asian male, and a lot of the actors are. We have some South African actors. We have some. Look at Alicia; she's Swedish, right? So I just felt that there was a good mix, and it just didn't feel like they were forcing it down our throats. It felt natural, and it didn't detract from the movie. But so in that case, I think they did that very well.
Yeah, well said. I actually agree on that point. I like Tomb Raider. I like it. I think the word James used is the perfect one. It's serviceable. I watched it opening night in I want to say IMAX. Yeah, I watched it opening night in IMAX, and I watched it again last night. It's exciting. It's well filmed. It's well acted, but the story's very thin. The themes are very thin. There's just not a lot there, but what is there is very very good and very entertaining. I think it's I hate to use this word, but I think it's a fun film. It's a fun film with a great lead who really took to the role and gave her all. You can see it in how her body was basically transformed for this part, and Vikander really goes above and beyond. Like this is her movie, and she plays it to the extreme. And yeah, like there's some things that I don't like about it, but overall, I do think that it's a movie that's worth seeing. It's a good time. It's not like a waste of time. You won't be like, man, I wish I would have done something else. It's a good movie, but yeah, I really think that there could have been more to it, like more to get your teeth under, and I really hope that there's a sequel because I think that a sequel could do just that. I think that the primary issue with this movie was there was a lack of confidence from the studio from the get go. I think that they kind of approached it with one foot in. They weren't too sure if there was still an interest in this idea, and they didn't put their full backing behind this. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
I don't know about that. I mean, I don't necessarily. I can't say they didn't do that, but I can't say they did either. I mean, as far as promotion goes, it seemed to get a lot of promotion. I remember
Okay.
seeing TV spots and ads and
As do I.
all over the place, and it got a lot of talk and a lot of buzz at the time. I think when the movie came out, it there weren't the press and whatnot wasn't really like hammering on the movie. I don't remember anything not necessarily too overly positive or negative about it. So I felt like it was just one of those movies that kind of just slipped under the radar.
It came and
Um,
it went.
they could have probably pushed the whole feminist thing like really hard and maybe got more press, but they didn't, and I'm actually kind of happy about that. But maybe at the same time, that maybe could have made it more money. Like I have no idea. Like the whole Ocean's movie, like the Ocean's movie that came out, I've heard a lot of the same things about that movie as I have about this Tomb Raider movie. Like it was a good movie. It could have probably used a little bit of polishing. It wasn't necessarily good
And the
nor
same
bad.
studio too, actually. Yeah,
Yeah,
same
sure.
studio.
It came and it went, right? But that movie actually got a lot more press, I believe, at the time because of kind of some of the
I think,
statements that were made.
but I think it's also due to the cast. I mean, the cast
Oh
for
yeah,
Ocean's 8 is
is lit.
Stacked.
it's
It's
it's a
stacked.
stack.
It's lit. Like yeah, Swinton and you have
Bullock,
Bullock and like
Hathaway,
You got
uh,
Rihanna.
Rihanna,
yeah,
Mindy. You got Mindy Kaling. That's
The only thing I don't like about that is that I think the audience is a lot smarter, and I think they were smart in not pushing that narrative agenda with Tomb Raider. Unfortunately, they did it with Ocean's 8, and I think Ocean's 8 suffered for it. I think the studios are underestimating its audiences, and with Tomb Raider, like they still got a $95 million budget, right? That's about $50 million away from a Marvel level budget, right? And we know that Tomb Raider doesn't need a Marvel level budget, so they I feel like they did back it up financially. And if we go with that dumb rule of doubling the budget in terms of
It did
marketing, which
that. It did.
it did
It broke
almost.
even.
Well, it made 275 million worldwide, right? So it made a moderate or a modest profit, not including any sort of contracts to Netflix or Blu-rays and this and that. And that's if we're taking into account the doubling of the budget, which is
Sure.
never like they call it the rule of thumb, but it's not really a rule of thumb. There's a lot more.
It's more complicated than that.
It's
Yeah,
a lot
like,
more complicated
because
than
the
that.
budget might be 95 million, but the studios are really smart. They hire within, so like the money never really leaves the company anyway. So it's
Sure.
even if the budget is 95, it's not the studio spending 95 million dollars.
Not only that, if they go to shoot in Vancouver, like I'm not sure exactly where this film filmed, but basically, they get tax rebates,
Yeah,
like
there's a lot of stuff that goes into it.
Sure.
exactly. I don't think they're in a rush to make a second one. It could happen, it couldn't. Sorry, it could happen, it might not. So I think at this point it's still up in the air,
Yeah.
and it'll probably be another year or two before we even.
I do hope for a sequel. I do hope for a sequel. So let's move on and let's start talking about the movie. So we're going to go over the spoiler wall. So if you haven't seen Tomb Raider yet, go watch it and come back to listen to the rest of the pod because we don't want to ruin it for you. But I think that overall we all agree that it's a decent film that is worth your time, right?
Oh yeah,
like
absolutely.
it's perfectly serviceable for like a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday night or something like that.
Okay, well let's get into. Why don't we start by talking about the performances? James, who do you think stood out?
To be quite honest, I think everybody sort of brought their A game. The material wasn't overly strong, but I think everybody took that material seriously. Like it didn't seem like it was just a paycheck job for everybody, right? Like some of these actors are so, like actually all of them are sort of classically trained. Whether it's Alicia Vikander, Dominic West, even Derek Jacobi's in the movie earlier in the movie. I think he's the one who gets her to sign over the inheritance from her father, right? Like he was in Gladiator. Like he's a very famous actor. So everybody took the material seriously. I just don't think that the material was particularly strong for anybody to specifically stand out. Now, for Alicia Vikander, though, she sort of transformed her body, right? You see the videos online of her training, and yeah, she's still sort of a thin, lean person, but you see her going from thin and lean. For example, give me an example of a movie here. What's that movie where?
Ex Machina or
No,
the Danish
Ex
Girl?
Machina. I'm thinking of the Danish Girl, yeah, where she's very thin and very fair. Same thing with The Man from U.N.C.L.E. But in this one, she leans out in a very muscular way to the point where you can see the muscle striations in her shoulders and in her, like, sort of in her chest, right? So she definitely, went all out with the training and, probably put on about 10, 15 pounds of muscle on her sort of fair frame.
Yeah, she really, I could tell she put a lot into the film. I mean, like, and some of the action shots that she was doing, like a lot of those were, I mean, of course, like she actually did a lot of her stunt work. If you watch some of the behind the scenes stuff, and they're very trying. I mean, of course, there's a lot of precautions that are taken, when doing those sort of things, but they were definitely very trying, and I'm surprised that she pulled as many off as she did on her own.
I think it was really good. Like during the
go ahead.
fights, you could tell that she was very much involved. Like, of course, yeah, they have their stunt doubles and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I think the stunt double for her got a lot more rest than, for example, Denzel Washington in the latest Equalizer movie, where there's the end fight. You don't even see his face for the whole thing, and you can tell the entire fight is a stunt double.
Yeah. So as far as the performances go, I would have to say, shout out to Alicia. I'm a big fan of hers. I think she did a really good job with her, acting. Like, I didn't even think of her as an action star, but I feel like after watching this movie, I definitely could see her in a sequel and see her, doing a really good job. But then I also think she does fantastic, as she always does in the dramatic roles. I like when she had shared the screen with Dominic, who played Richard Croft, her father. They had some awesome on-screen chemistry for a short of time as it was. So I really have to give that a shout out because she did a fantastic job. And then actually, Dominic West did a good job. I will say that I loved his role. He really brought a sort of he was kind of like the heart of the movie almost, I feel like. And he had a very sensitive spot, I think, in the movie as well that I think really translated well on screen.
Yeah,
But
you
my
could really tell just how much he loved Lara. Like it felt so real to me. Like
yeah,
just how much he loved that girl and how he was doing everything he could to keep her safe, even
oh yeah,
though it meant sacrificing so much. Like that's like you said, that was like if that didn't work, the movie wouldn't work at all.
sure, I agree. And I think that, but this is what really, and also, I mean, I have to shout out all these people. So, like, Daniel Wu, he did a great job. I think he brought that fun aspect to the movie, but he did it so well. I liked a lot of his jokes; they landed really well for me. Some of the kind of physical humor that he did, like when he was, in that drunken stupor on top of the ship, I thought that was pretty funny.
Me too.
The I guess Laura's was it aunt Anna
Honor
Miller,
Miller, yeah.
yeah, who was basically kind of like the proprietor of the company or whatever, who was basically the one kind of helping Laura make some of the legal decisions with her father being gone and all that. Also did a really good job. I actually. Within the very short time she was on screen, I really had this disdain for that woman. I didn't know why. And at the end,
It
that
all
twist
comes
was
out. Yeah.
actually
I
really
mean,
good. But yeah, she did a really good job. I mean, like I think she played this very like, this nefarious role and you could just smell it, even though she wasn't necessarily doing anything, at the time nefarious. And then my biggest shout out, I had to save him for last, is Walton Goggins, who plays Matthias Vogel. I think he blew it out of the park. He was just so as an antagonist, like he was just so intense and so I use this terminology. He had this sort of like like this exhausted anger about him. I don't know. It's hard to tell because he'd been on that island for 7 years, and you could just tell that the island had just done him in. Like he would do anything to get off the island, and I could tell that for actually all of the people that he had there, all of his goons that were all there. They all seemed kind of like they were kind of trapped. They were victims in their own way from Triad. Like they were the ones basically kind of keeping them on that island, looking for that tomb. And I just thought he did such a great job, especially when he was the scene. There was a scene where there was an old man who he was sick, and
oh yeah.
he was coughing, right? And you had all these big muscular guys all around with these big guns, looking very menacing, like kind of looking at him, telling him to get up, kicking him and stuff, right? It was Lou Ren and Laura kind of like trying to help him and say, hey, like he's sick, and I was expecting like one of those big guys to like kick or to like shoot him or something like that, or oh, we don't need him anymore or something like that. But then you hear a shot and then it's actually Matthias, and just the look on his face, and then he takes the gun and he aims it at Laura, and he has this look on his face, and I was like genuinely like,
It's one of those things that like I read a book a couple of years ago called I think it's called Save the Cat. And it's a script
Yeah.
writing book.
Yeah,
And they
I
said
know
one
that.
of the main things you do when writing, whether it's your protagonist or antagonist, is if it's the antagonist, you get him to do something despicable almost right away. Immediately sort of give him a sense that like you don't want your audience to like him or feel sympathetic towards him, unless that's of course what you're going for. Or for example, for your antagonist, and for your protagonist, you get him to do something that's sort of cool and really sort of hero or noteworthy, right? Where it'll be like,
sure,
oh, okay, I get it. This guy's a cool guy, and like I sympathize with him. I like him because he's like a cool. The example I'm thinking about is an Al Pacino movie where he does something, he lets somebody go, and he's like, oh, he's a cool cop and stuff like that. So I think what you're explaining, where Walton Goggins comes out of the blue and he's the one who shoots the old man, right? And
yeah,
he's the one who circumvents expectations of, oh, it's going to be these goons, these 230-pound muscular guys, with their glistening biceps and stuff like that are going to shoot this guy in, right? But you're right, like they're using
yeah,
the physical image to make you think one thing, and then this guy who's sort of lanky and sort of kooky come in
yeah,
and boom, he just kills them, right?
I
So
think Kookie's the right word to define him.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He's nuts.
yeah, and like Coggins has this way of just chewing the scenery, and like if you've like seen him his TV work, if you've seen him in in The Shield or Sons of Anarchy, is the same thing. Whenever he's on screen, you just can't look away because he has these mannerisms that are just so that just draw your attention in, and then they just won't let you it just won't let you pay attention to anybody else in that scene.
Yeah.
And again here in this movie, you saw it like you were just talking about. He was exhausted. Like, you're on this island for 7 years. He has nobody to talk to. He misses his girls. He just wants to go home. He's done. And you get all of that within a few moments of meeting him without him saying much. Just him sitting across from Laura in that scene together. All of that just kind
Oh,
of
in the tent.
Yes, all of that kind of
Yes.
just wafts over towards you, like right off the screen and right into you. Like, I just that's how you introduce a character. Like, right off the bat, you just know this guy is like not where, like, in the right state of mind.
Well,
You know,
you know what the best performance is of Walton Goggins, right? And
uh,
like his hairline, it made the best comeback in the last 15 years. That hairline has made one hell of a fucking comeback.
that's messed
It's
up,
gone from
man.
like the back of his head to the front of his head.
So yeah, so we've talked about Alicia
Uh,
Vikander. Like, this, like, you can throw all of the positive adjectives you want at her. She really she got Lara. She was amazing. She did everything she was asked to do, and it showed on screen, like what James said, like all everything that she did to transform her body, all of the stunts that she put herself through, and it pays off because a lot of that stuff looks great when you see it on screen. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
oh yeah.
Dominic West was Dominic West. Like, I've been a fan of his since The Wire, and he's always like he's always capable of bringing real emotion to everything that he does. No matter what he's asked to do, he can make you feel it in just a few short moments. And we already talked about how he was the heart of this film. Like, his just love and determination and admiration for his daughter it shines through in every scene that they're together. And it's not just with Vikander, but even with the younger versions of her character, you can feel it time and time again.
I was
And
actually surprised when he showed up again because
I
I just
was too. I
my
was
Mhm.
experience
too.
was with the games and the previous movie. So I was like, okay, even going into the movie, I was like, he's gonna be
Yeah,
dead by the time like we catch up to like now, the
yeah,
present.
Yeah.
And then he
Yeah.
was there, and I was like, oh fuck, he's alive.
and then actually when he showed up, I was like, huh, okay, this is kind of weird, but it played out very well. I think that was handled really well, and Lou Ren was awesome. I think he's the sixth man. Honestly,
Yeah.
like he
I want to see him
he's
again. I really do. I
yeah,
want to
me
see him in the
too.
sequel.
I feel like him and Alicia had a great chemistry together.
They
I
definitely
liked
did. They
all of
definitely
their
did.
scene together. He was just good to have. Kind of like lightened up the movie a little bit, but not too much. And he just gave like this entire other dimension that the film really needed to, just to pull through. And so I really appreciated him as well. Yeah. So why don't we carry on and talk about like our favorite moments and scenes in the movie? Mike, you want to get us started?
Yeah. So actually, there are a lot of moments in this movie that I loved. So probably the my favorite moment would have to be bicycle chase scene in the beginning where they're racing and they have a punctured can of paint in the back of Laura's bicycle, and she has to race down the city from one end to the other. And get away from all these other bicyclists before they snag this foxtail off the back of her cycle. And I just have to say that the cinema the cinematography during that scene, like just the camera angles that they choose, were so inventive. And there were certain scenes that I throughout this movie that I can actually point out where they did some really really like crazy camera work that I was like really blown away by. That kind of just like reared their heads at like just certain times throughout the film. It was kind of unequal almost. Like I didn't see it all the time, but there were some times like, wow, that was a really interesting way to film that. Like there's just one scene where you see her just ripping around the corner with her bike, and then you actually get a view of her from like the back of a car in front of her. It was just so like unique how they did that. It was super fast, super frenetic, and just really really exciting. Like I've never seen a bicycle race, like a straight up, bicycle race so so thrilling.
I agree. I agree.
And when I saw this, I'm like, okay, this also really cemented why I knew that she would be a really great Tomb Raider, because like, she had already done archery as a child. They mentioned that earlier in the movie, which I was really happy they did that. Like, she didn't just pick up a bow and like
They start shooting. Yeah, they show her
start.
as a kid in that really great scene with her
Yes,
dad when she's trying to hit the apple.
yes, and then he gives the whole the truth and myth dialogue, which I thought was fantastic.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I really love that scene a lot. There was another scene where when the boat's crashing, and that whole boat scene was really really suspenseful and very well shot. And then at the end where she falls into the water, and then you see like pieces of the boat coming off, and you have like one like just super painterly photogenic scene where the lightning is crackling and like the water's illuminated. You see the bubbles rising, and she's kind of just floating in the water. Like that was just fantastic as well.
Yeah, and I also like how the last shot of that is from it's from the vantage point of underneath the water looking up at her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also a really great shot that I really loved.
Yeah, so that was good, and then there were several scenes after she first escapes well, Matthias and the gang, and the airplane scene.
Dude, leave something for us, man. You go through the whole damn thing.
The guy was giving a blow by blow of the whole movie.
Yeah, like
Okay, the
let us have
beginning.
something.
Okay,
God
the
damn.
end.
Man, it was lit, man. But yeah, the bicycle is definitely the best. I think it's the first that comes to mind, so I'll have to just hold myself back and go with that.
Yeah, let James have a little something to munch on. James, go ahead before Mike just keeps talking for the
Just
rest
takes
of
the whole movie.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know what? At the beginning of the movie, when it started off with the bicycle race, I'll agree with Mike. Like I thought it was very ingenuitive. Like it was very well orchestrated, because the thing is, when it first started, I sort of rolled my eyes. I'm like, a bike race? Give me a break! Like this is cornball as it gets, right? But
Yep.
they actually they pulled it off, and it was exciting, and it was enjoyable. But if I was going to go with one of my favorite sequences, I would actually say it's more of like a bunch of small sequences, and it's when they enter the temple near the end in the third act. And I always have something about traps in temples and stuff like that, whether it's Indiana Jones or this movie, or even I think it goes back for me. Do you guys remember the original Jungle Book with Jason Scott Lee? It was live action Disney movie back in the mid '90s, and
I feel like I've seen it.
I think I've seen
they
it too. Yeah.
Carrie Elwes is in it as well. And I always got freaked out by the scene where they're in this little pit, and they set off a trap, and all these jets of sand start shooting inwards into the pit while the roof is closing in on them, basically burying them alive, right? And I just remember this guy getting buried alive in the sand, and I was like, damn. Like, since then, I always like movies with traps where people are getting killed in these weird, like unique ways that are obviously impossible.
Sure.
With the technology considered, right? Like, remember what's that thing where like they got the colored crystals to stop
Yeah,
the floor
yeah.
from
Yeah.
falling? I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, how does that in any way work?
And she had to,
Oh.
yeah, the color of life, green.
The color of life, green. Oh, green is good. The laser, and you're just like, how does this work? But you know what? I enjoy the trap scenes and stuff like that.
Those spiked columns, like like sliding down at an angle, and she was like sliding underneath them. Like that was really exciting.
Yeah.
Yes,
It misses her
yes,
face
yes.
by like an inch.
Yeah.
So one
Yeah.
from the trailer there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I liked her last fight with Matthias in the
What does she
tomb.
do? She jams the
She
finger in his
jams
mouth.
the finger in his mouth, and then she breaks his jaw, I think.
Not what he
then-
was expecting.
Not yeah, and then yeah. So then after that, she jumps over the ravine, and then she runs and runs and runs as the tomb is like falling apart around her, and
That was-
Junkie XL's theme is like just
Oh my
rocking in the
God.
back, and like I
Yes.
just love that. And like you just like the column is falling, and then she slides underneath, then she jumps back up, and then she's just like, yo, I just thought that was all of that was just so badass. It was so badass. And then like how she grabbed the cable hook at the end to like go back
Yeah.
up as everything is falling around her. Just
Junkie,
like,
man,
just,
junkie.
oh my goodness. Like I was like, oh man, this one is crazy.
Yep.
Yeah. This one is crazy. What else was there? Yeah, like you mentioned, I loved how she escaped from the camp. how it just went from she runs away, she crosses the tree thing, she falls in the water, she lands on in the plane, and then the plane is breaks apart and she falls out of that again. She opens the parachute got holes in it. You know, like I just love how
Yeah.
like it was like even at one point even she's like, "Oh come on!" Like
Yeah.
it just
She's almost echoing like the audience's thoughts. Like,
exactly.
come on, really?
Like
Yeah.
I was like, "Cut this chick
That's
some
how you know like the
slack."
movie knows what it's giving because it
Yes.
knows what the audience expectation is. And
Yes.
at that point, if it's able to verbalize literally our thoughts, it's like, okay, they're having fun with this.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, like I was like, let her, like, just let her take a breath, and it just would not until she lands. She finally lands, but then she's stabbed through the stomach
Like a twig.
with a twig. Yeah, I'm like, oh, and then afterwards she has to pull off her first kill, and
Yes.
that scene is, I think,
Really
one
good
of the
too.
it's so well done. You
Well
feel
shot.
the tension, like yeah, with the rain and the
The
lightning.
color grading
And the
on that was
mud.
really good.
Oh,
Yes.
I love.
And it's surprisingly dark and gritty for a
Yes.
fight scene. Like it like it went for it, like her
Yes.
first kill,
Yeah.
and it was sort of unforgiving.
They actually, so the plane scene, there's so many scenes they took from the game, and I was so afraid
Mhm.
that it was going to be corny. We all expect these game movies to be like so corny because they try to like mimic it, but they pulled it off every time. This movie does not get enough credit for how well it pulls off scene by scene some of these things.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
agree. I agree.
yeah.
Even when she like enters the camp and she's got her bow and arrow and she's just like shooting down these dudes, like everything just looks good. It feels right. Like never once did I think, oh come on. It just worked really well.
Yeah, once again, yeah, I agree. And there's this one scene actually where she's hiding from one of the goons inside of this tomb, like laying on top of this like this mummy, right? This like
Mhm.
body, right, in the tomb. Do you remember that scene? And you get
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
like, and this is the crazy camera work they did. Like, so they they had the camera like aimed at her like wormhole style at her face from the other end of the tomb, right? Because she's hiding like inside, right? And and you hear footsteps of the guy coming by, and he finds her and grabs her leg and pulling her, and she's like struggling, to like get away, and then the whole thing breaks from underneath her, and they have this really cool scene where like they rig the camera to be like on the same plane, like maybe she's laying on top of like a platform of some kind or like a board or something, and they have like the camera laying in front of her, and it's like it comes crashing down, like several levels down along with her. It was this
Mhm.
really cool scene, and I'm like, wow, that was really inventive. I love that scene so much. It was so weird because they had done some like crazy stuff like that in the first bicycle race. I feel like the same person who was responsible for that also did this too. So I love that a lot.
Now that's yeah. James, do you have anything to add? Any other favorite moments we haven't mentioned?
I did enjoy the like just like a little minor scene, that chase scene across the boats in the
Oh
the Hong
yes,
Kong
the
harbor
pier.
there
Yes,
with
yes,
the
yes.
with the
Yeah, I
thieves and
forgot
stuff
that
like that.
one. I forgot that one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was really good. I like how it started with her chasing them, and then it ends with them chasing her.
Chasing her.
Yeah. So okay, let's move on. Let's talk about. Well, I feel this is one of my. I feel like one of the few cons I have with the film is the themes. Like here at the film Exiles, we love to dig deep into movies and analyze them and try to go a little bit beneath the surface and try to figure out what the director's intentions were. But I felt like this film was severely lacking in that. Do you guys agree with me on that?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, there was just there was your basic simple themes of family and father-daughter relationships and stuff like that. But beyond that,
Or
Mike,
maybe
yeah,
yeah.
Mike, get it going, like get us started. What themes interested you? What did you feel stood out in any kind of way?
Well, my favorite one was that the truth to myth. Richard Croft did a really good job in one of the flashbacks talking about how there's always a bit of truth. What did he say? Word for word. Let me see here. I have it actually. I posted on Twitter. Oh, here we go. He says, "Well, all myths have a foundation in reality." So I like that a lot. Actually, the way he delivered the line, it sounded really good. It was very quotable, and I felt like it was really interesting because later on, actually, Matthias actually said something toward the end that directly mirrored that. He says, there's a very big difference between myth and reality, Richard, something you could never understand. And I was like, okay, like that was really clever, you know. And that kind of really showed the diametric like differences they had in their ideals and why they clash so much. And they'd both been stuck on the island for 7 years, but obviously one, you know, it broke one and it didn't break the other. And I think a big reason for that is because Laura kind of saved Richard. If it wasn't for him, you know, Richard could have easily have ended up like, you know, Matthias, you know. But aside from that, though, yeah, it was pretty thin. And I would say more than just thin. It didn't really like the themes weren't like they didn't encompass the movie, or they didn't really. That wasn't the biggest reason for watching the movie. A lot of the action set pieces and things like that are the reason for it, and the themes were kind of just there, just to be there. I felt like, you know, it wasn't like a really big part of the movie, and I wish it was. So.
You didn't have to dig deep.
Yeah, correct.
James,
No,
you have
I
anything
just-
to add?
You know, I think Mike just hit everything on the head. Than like the nail on the head. I think just the director. What did you say his name was? Roar something.
Roar Uthang.
That's right, Roar Uthaug. I think, you know, for him it was he took it as his opportunity to make a big budget American movie, and I think, you know, he took it as such. He took it as a blockbuster movie, and you know, and I don't think there was too much concern in trying to be, you know, too deep in terms of themes, and he just wanted to sort of deliver a good old-fashioned sort of, you know, American movie, right, for American audiences, right? So,
What are you trying to say?
you know, no, I'm just saying, you know, like
That's a loaded statement, my friend.
a lot of directors, you know, like they get into filmmaking not because of the movies from their own country, but because, you know, they grew up on, you know, great American films like Star Wars and Indiana Jones and those kinds of movies. Like those movies sort of transcend, you know, just, you know, American film, right? So getting this chance to direct, you know, $100 million American movie compared to, you know, maybe the $10 million The Wave movie, you know, it's a huge opportunity, and you might want to keep it, you know, keep it simple, stupid, right? Like that old saying, especially if you're not established.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that he kept it simple as could be. But in that simplicity, I do like what he did. What the story did with Himiko. How the entire time we're told that she's this bringer of death, this like harbinger that she brings with her blood and gore and destruction wherever she goes. And then when you finally get to the end, you find out that she was just a girl who was inoculated from a disease, but that she carried, right?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
and
Well,
and,
the thing is, that wasn't entirely false, right? She was a bringer of death, and a lot of people died.
yeah,
And
but it's like
but
the
it played
truth.
with our
It's like,
expectations.
yes, exactly. But it's like Richard said, there's an inkling of truth in all the myths. Like, you know, like the myth wasn't true, or wasn't fully true.
Sure.
Yeah, and that she sacrificed herself in order to try to save the world. That she asked to be placed there to keep that curse away from the rest of the world. And I think that that's a really interesting thing that they did, that they could have gone further with. You know, they could have tried to parallel that with something that Laura was going through,
Or her father, even.
or exactly. I think that there's a lot there. There was very little, but there was possibility for more, which I think is disappointing.
Yeah. With as much myth as is in Tomb Raider, and like, you know, and the whole idea of this kind of adventure, like, you know, story, you can totally put those themes in there and have parallels. I
Hmm.
think that that's why I'm even more excited for a sequel, because they could totally do like a duology or a trilogy or something like that, where basically they kind of tie it back, and maybe, you know, after Laura has gotten in all these, you know, all sorts of trouble, and, you know, raided all sorts of tombs and has traveled all around the world, maybe some of her escapades have kind of gotten out, has sort of evolved into her own myth, has maybe turned sour, maybe it's turned, you know, negative, And that could also kind of parallel back to the first movie. They could do so many things with this in sequels, and that's what I'm really excited to see. Hopefully that happens.
Yeah, I agree. I
You
think
know,
there's a ton of potential here. Like, I
well,
really believe that.
and you know what? Thinking about what you guys are saying, we especially with the fact that they're using like sorry, I can't remember. Is she Chinese or Japanese?
I think Japanese. I
Yeah.
think he's
So
Japanese.
the thing is, when we think about myth, whether it's Greek myth or Scandinavian myth, with the Vikings and stuff like that, there's always heavy themes in those myths and that history. And I feel like thinking about it now that having the Japanese Himiko, even though whether she's made up or not, there was maybe a bit of a missed opportunity to use sort of Japanese myth as an opportunity to delve into certain themes.
So yeah, let's. I mean, we've already talked about the cinematography and our favorite shots a little bit. I think when we talked about our favorite scenes. But is there anything, James? Is there anything that you want to pinpoint? Anything that you didn't mention before that you really like? Just your overall thoughts on the cinematography of the movie.
I think the scenes on the boat where it's breaking apart and at the end she jumps off and you see the crackle of lightning in the back. I think that was fantastically done. Simply because I see so many movies that are either shot in the dark or at nighttime, and it is so hard to see anything. And what they did here was fantastic, especially with the waves hitting. Like you could see the water, you could see the moonlight, you could see the rain, you could see Lara, you could see what she was doing. And then, even when the camera pulls back to show her jumping across, you can see everything. And it was just very well shot, very well lit, even though I'm sure a lot of it is, CG. And speaking of that fight where she does her first kill, I was just watching it 2 seconds ago on YouTube, and it was very well lit in terms of using the blacks and the blues, and using what they're trying to do is use the moonlight to light up the scene. And I think just overall it was a very competently shot film. Some aspects, we talk about Larry Fong a lot, right, with his work in 300 or Kong Skull Island, and there's parts in this movie where you could almost think that maybe Larry Fong was the DOP on the film.
Who was?
Well, if you want to know who the DOP of the movie was, it was... Drumroll, please, Manu.
I'm on IMDb too.
Same here. It was...
Thank God for
George
IMDb.
Richmond. George Richmond. He did... Oh, man. He did Children of Men, Kingsman, The Secret Service. But Kingsman, Eddie the Eagle... Yeah, Kingsman, The Golden Circle, Tomb Raider. He's doing the Elton John biography, Rocket Man. He's got a couple of good movies under his belt for sure.
Mike, what about you? What did you think about the cinematography?
So this is actually where I'm going to levy some complaints, because I don't really find any other categories in here to be appropriate for the particular complaints that I have. So I'd say the themes were kind of thin and weren't very delved into as much as they could have been. The cinematography was really good for the most part. I loved a lot of the shot compositions, the camera movements, the color grading. The boat scene when she falls off the boat was fantastic. The first kill scene in the rain and the mud at night was also really great. A lot of the tomb scenes were really good too, actually. When she was actually in Himiko's tomb was fantastic. But one of the problems I had was actually the set was the entrance to Himiko's tomb. For some reason, the set and also some of the forest scenes, like during the day, I don't know, felt kind of like fake, maybe.
Setish?
Huh?
They felt setish.
Like it was
Yeah,
set.
yeah, really, yeah. They felt like, especially like like I felt like a lot of the trees like around the the entrance to Himiko's tomb. I felt like they just like draped some like fake vines on them, and like the rocks felt like they were like fake, like they seemed like too clean, like they maybe put like threw some dirt on there, and just kind of like they didn't no rain streaks, no like none of that like really like that really like natural kind of feel to it, and also I felt like the color grading during those particular scenes were also like kind of maybe could have left something to be desired. And in general, I felt like that those got the most or the least amount of attention. It feels like to me. I felt like some of the action scenes were good, but then when I had to just kind of like take a big, gander at the set, I was just always kind of left, I guess disappointed at least, and kind of just confused or even disgusted at worst. So
Well, you know what? I know where you're coming from but I really liked Avengers: Infinity War, except that last scene where Thanos comes and
Wait, hold on.
destroys
Why?
everybody. That entire scene, that whole set, just seems like a dirt pit with a couple of bushes and trees thrown there, like
yeah,
for
yeah,
good
I
measure.
agree.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know what.
And then
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and then you look at the behind the scenes pictures and you're like, yeah, it's literally 10 feet of dirt and a couple of bushes thrown for good measure.
Yeah, they could have done so much. If honestly, if they fixed that one set, I would have been like, I could have moved this movie up like a half a point in score, because like that set was so terrible. It was so ugly and so like, and I just felt like they were acting so seriously, and they were putting their all into the movie, but the backdrop was just so bad that I was just like, you know, you can't miss it. When I first saw it, I didn't really understand what it was, but then when I watched it the second time last night on DVD, I was like, yeah, it's that those fake rubber rocks, and
I'll keep an eye out for it. I'll definitely keep an eye out for it.
Mike, tell us about the store for Junkie XL.
it was amazing. It was incredible. Oh man, the music I mean, all the best action scenes had all the best music, and they played off each other so well. I mean, the bike scene, the scene with the airplane, the boat scene, at the end when she was running out of the tomb as it was collapsing around her, and even the music during the credits was lit. I mean, like, I listened to that on my phone just because, like, when I'm driving to work or whatever. I mean, the music was just so, like, he does such a good job, like this sort of like synth rock kind of epic score that's so uniquely him. And it was so funny because after I watched it the first time, I'm like, man, that music was so good. And then I figured out it was Junkie XL, and I'm like, of course. So I can't praise it enough.
James, what about you?
Like I said, I've only seen the movie once, right? And the score did jump out at me the first time I saw it. So I can't really say anything much beyond that because I'm gonna have to revisit the movie and the score and stuff like that. So I keep thinking Mike keeps making me look bad every time I'm talking about something. I'm like, yeah, I like how it was shot here, and I like the this and that, and I enjoy the music. And then you get Mike coming in. Yes, the tempo of the music was very apropos for the scene where she's running out of the cave, and yes, the color grading of the scene, yes, and the lighting, yes, very
James,
very.
James, I host this damn thing. I'm on every goddamn episode. This happens to me all the damn time. If it's not Mike, then it's the other Mike. If it's not
Joy.
the other Mike,
Joy
it's
crushes
Joy.
us all.
If it's not Joy, it's Sal. I'm tired of y'all. Or if it's not that, it's worse. That's complete. You know what? You just.
And it's the worst because like they're talking about it and I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what they're saying. Yeah, these are the words I should be using. Yeah, this is the terminology I should be saying, but I'm not expressing myself correctly.
Hey, you guys represent the everyman, okay?
Get the fuck out of here, the everyman.
Yes, get the fuck out of here.
We have to
God.
have you guys on the podcast to appeal to all demographics.
I hate you, Velcro.
That
Well,
sheet might
okay.
fill it to you.
Yes, the music is good. The music was very good.
It was lit, fam.
It was lit. It was lit, man. Like I was crumping. Is that a thing? Is crumping a thing? Is crumping?
You can make it a thing.
No, but the score.
James just left. He just left the chat.
To make myself feel better.
I really enjoyed the score. Like you said, Junkie XL knows exactly what beat to use at exactly the right time to just draw like an extra bit of excitement out of each individual during watching this movie. Like during that last scene when Laura decides to fight back, when her dad blows up the charges, and she takes that moment to get Walter Coggins off of her, and the music just shifts just
Yep.
perfectly, and it just like, oh snap, it's about to go down, and it does, and like I love it, that and all of the running through out of that damn tomb. The music is just pumping and pumping. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. He really knocked that out. That one and also the boat scene, I think, have the best music pieces of the whole
Sure.
film. Yeah,
Can I just take this time to say one thing as well about all the scene?
bad again?
What? What'd you say?
Are you gonna make us look bad again?
All right, I'm not gonna make you feel bad. It's all right, man. I'm not
look
trying
bad,
to.
look bad.
Let's say look bad. You're gonna make us look bad again. Like James doesn't even want to talk anymore.
Well, we actually I want you guys to put your input on this as well, because I think this is actually a big part. So, in a lot of action movies with with female leads, I feel a lot of times they kind of tone down on the grittiness sometimes. Except like there are certain exceptions to this rule, like Atomic Blonde and probably Peppermint with Garner coming out and things like that. Where it's kind of like, it's very obviously like a John Wickian kind of like take on a film with a female lead. But like this movie did a good job with not like, it didn't make you feel like the world was treating Lara any easier because she was a female. Like when she was fighting someone who was larger and stronger than her, she got like tossed around,
You got rocked.
She got absolutely like beat, and she had to find some extremely creative ways to defeat most of her enemies. As a matter of fact, even in the beginning, I loved it so much how when she was fighting that larger woman, obviously much more stronger and probably even a better fighter than her.
She straight up lost.
She straight up lost. She got rocked, and I love how she started from defeat. She keeps getting beat and beat and beat down, and she takes that with her throughout the film. Like she knows that she's going to get beat if she doesn't find another way around it, and she is, and it's not like she hasn't, she's a very strong, athletic woman, but, she's also very pragmatic too. And I just loved how the film treated that. Like it didn't.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, and you're absolutely right. Like even in the bike scene, you see it then too when she jumps on the car, just for a little bit, because again she's not just using her body, she's using her mind as well. Because like even if she was on it only for like a stretch, that stretch gave her enough time to recuperate, to build a lead between the other guys, and that's constantly, and you see that it keeps coming back.
Yes.
In all of these moments that she's in danger, she always tries to find a way through, and I think that makes her stronger in a way, because I think that it makes, like I said, she's a real badass, because even when everything is up against her, she constantly finds a way through. She continues to dig deeper within herself.
Yes.
Like she's tested, and she comes to the and she comes through. And like at the end of the movie, you're just happy that she's still alive.
Also, she gets to feel fear as well. Like when she's on the plane, she's afraid. When
the boat is crashing, she's scared.
Yeah. Or when Matthias has the gun on her, like she is like rocked to the core. Like she's like really, really afraid. And the acting by Vikander as well is just so phenomenal.
Yes, she's very
so good. She's so good.
Well, especially when you're talking about the fear, especially that fight that she has with that one goon, where she knows she has to kill him. She has no choice. And she almost has like a small breakdown even while she's killing him.
Yeah,
right?
like
where she's choking him out and drowning him in the mud.
Yeah, I know. She was terrified at like what she was doing. It was wow. It was so good.
I agree. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Mike. All right, great. So with that, we're gonna end the pod there. Thank you, fellas, for joining me, and thank you for our listeners for going with us on this ride with Lara Croft and the Tomb Raider. James, why don't you drop your @
Yeah, my @ is @mass_critical. That's MAS_critical, just with a C. My AVI is a picture of Kurt Russell as Snake Plissken, and if you haven't already seen it, watch Upgrade. That movie needs a lot of love. I know I missed the Upgrade podcast, so
Did
but
you
if
say
you still haven't
AVI?
seen it, watch it.
You know AVI is short for Avatar, right? And it's actually it's AVA, really.
Whatever. My avatar is
Mike, go
But,
ahead.
yeah,
Drop
watch
your
Upgrade.
ad.
Watch Upgrade.
Yes, watch Upgrade. Yeah, Mike, go ahead. Drop your ad.
It is at Velcro16. That is at VELKRO16. That's Velcro spelled wrong with a K. The Twitter name is Sheen Mikezilla, SHIN Mikezilla. Avatar is a picture of Godzilla. Can't miss me.
All right, and you can find me at ManUnited0710. You can also follow the Film Exiles Twitter page at the Film Exiles. You can reach us in long form over email at thefilmexiles@gmail.com. We are on Instagram, we are on Pinterest, we are on Facebook. So if you want to reach out to us, you definitely can, and please do. We want to hear from you. So with that said, have a good night and take care.